Today's AskReddit post. Poor people of Reddit, what do you wish wealthy people would understand? Oh boy, this is gonna be a good one. Let's get started. The pressure of living to the next paycheck, with no safety net, if anything unexpected happens. Story of my life. Constantly living a finger's width from catastrophic financial disaster with life-altering consequences. Yeah, I always manage to pull through and keep disaster at bay, but swear the daily management of it is intense. I know it wouldn't be a long-term fix, but I remember being in that situation and thinking, if I only had $1,000 in my bank account I'd be fine. But then I'd need a medical treatment or my car would have an issue and I wouldn't get there. Out of curiosity, what is the cushion amount that would make you feel somewhat comfortable? Poor people don't have the freedom to take chances. That's the biggest one for our long-term societal future. Stephen Jay Gould summed it up best. I am, somehow, less interested in the weight and convolutions of Einstein's brain than in the near certainty that people of equal talent have lived and died in cotton fields and sweet shops. God, what a ducking intellect Gould was. Being poor is so expensive. The stress of constantly just managing wears you out. People who aren't rich want the same things for their kids that the wealthy want for them. I remember asking for my first major raise that would take me out of poverty earnings and into middle class earnings. I broke down everything I was doing for my job and then bluntly explained, and I could do all of this much more effectively if I was not poor. And it was true. I could network way better and bring my company more business. I could get more into hobbies that paralleled the higher ups in my industry, which lead to more opportunities and learning more skills. It was more than a raise/promotion. It launched me into a better professional lifestyle. Congratulations. Money might not buy happiness, debatable, but it buys security and good luck being happy without that. Yeah. And working 60+ hours a week in soul destroying job or jobs just to make ends meet rarely brings happiness either. There's nothing worse than when you come home from a long day, feel absolutely shattered, and fall asleep, only to wake up just in time to go back to work again. It's worse when the home you come home to is a car. That affordability changes your priorities a lot. The one I run into is folks who can't afford a repair on a car and the more well-off people being befuddled why they'd risk it. I've had to have the conversation about affordability more than I'd like. Customers sometimes decline brake service because they'd rather pay rent and roll the dice hoping to get by a little longer. Not because they are all just cheap. I'm driving a 1996 car and more poop broken on it than I'd care to admit, and just between you and me, it's a death trap, but it's all I've got, and my god the repairs are expensive, because the parts barely exist anymore to fix anything. Parts to fix even ubiquitous cars are ridiculously expensive. Almost like they intentionally keep supply down, so they can charge more. A quick windfall gets spent quickly because there's always something you need but have been holding off on. A short disaster will incur debt that takes far longer to pay off. Such is life with marginal income. We are not jealous of your material possessions. We are jealous of the stability and security money brings. Being poor isn't a result of being lazy. My parents worked their asses off and continue to do so. They work harder than anyone I know, but they are still poor. Conversely, I work way less hard than I used to, but earn substantially more. I'm more lazy but less poor. And that seems to be the trend all the way up the ladder. Same. Due to my parents' hard work, my siblings and I do well for ourselves now. In the beginning though, I was working so hard for meager earnings. Now I hardly do anything, and I'm getting paid a lot. That it is expensive to be poor. I wasn't poor, but we didn't have much. I'm making good money now, and have put a lot into my savings. A money market. With interest rates high, I'm making a nice monthly return by doing absolutely nothing. Imagine people that have 10x, 20x or 100x more money than me. They can be comfortable and not even have to work. Their money invested properly does the work for them. Having to walk somewhere because you don't even have money for public transit. I worked as a waitress and broke my leg. I had to live on next to nothing for 6 weeks. To get my very limited groceries, I got my crutches out and managed the 30-minute round trip to the store and back. My city has subsidized the bus, so it's free for everyone. Bus occupancy has gone up ever since this decision. Routes have expanded, and bus service is available in major area of the city all week long instead of just weekdays. And there is endless bitching from the haves about how they don't benefit from it. It's not as easy to change your situation as everyone makes it out to be. It's so often not about bad choices / bad with money. Also, it's impossible to save if you're barely scraping by every month. Even if you manage to save a tiny amount, it'll be wiped out the first time your washing machine breaks or your crappy old car needs fixing. Sometimes rich people act like everyone should save their way out of trouble and use that as reasoning to call people financially irresponsible, but it's just maths. If you get £100, but £80 is spent on bills and £15 has to go to food, you cannot save the kind of money that will actually help you when poop hits the fan. Not being able to truly take care of your health. I haven't been to a dentist in 20 years. Open bracket. You should try and find programs in your area that provide free or very low cost dental care. Coworker last fall said the same thing to me. Told him to take a look around and they got their cavity taken care of for free. Hopefully you can find something accessible to you. When they say, if you can't afford to pay cash you can't afford it. Yeah. Well, try going without a fridge, a water heater and in Florida, no less. That's the last 3 things I had to put on a credit card. Once upon a time I used an HSA account to live off of. I got laid off with no warning and no savings. I was forced to spend all the money on the HSA account on non-medical stuff. Mostly bills, gas, and food. I think I still owe somebody somewhere for it. That being too poor to afford their 3rd trip overseas for the year is not the same as having to live off the same 2 vegetables for a fortnight. I feel you on this. Been eating the same 3 meals for the last 3 years. I no longer enjoy food or look forward to it. It's just something I gotta do to stay alive. I was about 4 yo during the year of beans and rice. Plain. Unseasoned. For breakfast, lunch and dinner. I cried at meals because I was so hungry but so sick of beans and rice. A strong middle class greatly expands the economy. Increasing their wealth squeezing us all is counterproductive. Yeah, I guess this is part of the tragedy of the commons. In this case, the commons is the well-being of the middle class. Almost everyone benefits from the middle class being solid and having a little money to spend, but no one benefits enough to take steps to maintain it. The guilt that comes with being poor, that you're doing everything in your power and it's still not enough, yet everyone tells you that if you just work hard enough you'll get enough money. It isn't true. Hard work in low socioeconomic jobs results in more work and being kept in the same position because no one else can do as much as you in that position. No pay rise either, because somehow despite doing more you're also just doing the same job as everyone else. You can't invest your savings in stocks or whatever when you have no savings. And no, the reason we don't have savings isn't because of ducking avocado toast. Cobra as a solution to having insurance after you are laid off is a ducking joke. I got told that when I was let go once. I said, Cobra is like $1 zillion. There's no way. I got back a sassy. Cobra is only $960 mo. What is wrong with you? If you have zero income, $960 is as much a fantasy as $1 bazillion jillion reduce. Not having minor and major inconveniences makes you out of touch with us and how a majority of people live. We are doing the best we can with what we have. Oftentimes those choices seem crazy, wrong, unthinkable. But we are just choosing the best out of the worst each time and trying to deal with it all. It's enormously stressful. Not exactly poor now, but been there. There is a poor tax. You pay out a bunch you can't afford to deal with the fact you can't afford normal poop. The story of the boots is very real. You pay a hell of a lot more over time because you can't afford the good poop now. So you have to buy it over and over. Interest when you buy on time is a lot more. You have to pay a lot of fees because you have to decide what to pay this month, etc. I'd just like for folks to glimpse at what it's like to need medical care and not be able to access it. Navigating free clinics and community health centers with all the administrative obstacles and wait lists and poor service. Having minimal or no preventative care as you age. God help you if you need mental health services. Remember when Celia on Weeds went from a private drug rehab to a publicly funded one? Most people would in fact prefer to have a good, steady job than to be on welfare. Also, I'd love for wealthy people to understand that being on welfare and other programs isn't just sitting on your ass all day. The paperwork alone is ducking obnoxious. You have to go through interviews. And you have to keep doing it over and over again forever. And sometimes you used your last dollar to take the bus to the SHS, but they are too busy to see you that day. So not only do you not have your food stamps, but you also have no money to go home or money to come back tomorrow. I worked interviewing SNAP for a while and it was so depressing. So many people were trying to do better and their benefits would be reduced more than the extra they were making. It's really one step forward and 2 steps back for poor people and everything is so precarious. 90% of rags and riches stories are fake. Also, for every rags to riches story there are 20 other stories about someone who tried just as hard, was just as smart, but simply failed. And most of what you heard of was basically just luck. Right place, right time, right people and all that. True merit-based success is as rare as benevolent dictators. Your materialism means absolutely nothing to me. I'm totally unimpressed by your fancy cars, expensive clothes, and your big mansions. People aren't mocking your Cybertruck because they are jealous and poor. They are mocking it because it's ugly. I'm sorry I can't hear you over the sound of how jealous. Asterisk carrot. I still am of that one guy in high school nobody remembers. Asterisk. My friend told me that houses were being built in the city and they are going to be ready in a year or so with only a 30k down payment. I have 35k in student loan debt and virtually no savings. Where do you think I'm finding 30k for a down payment on a house in the next year? 5-figure purchases / payments are not something that most people can just make happen. That they will never understand the constant monotonous stress that being poor comes with. Every day is a worry. Which bill should I pay? And which bill should I pay a late payment for? I don't get to go on vacation ever. I don't make frivolous payments on items I don't need. And finally, they will never understand that the current economic system that they support is specifically designed to keep poor and working class people down. It is overly simplistic, but I always use the toilet paper example. When it is on sale, people with money can stock up. Poor people cannot do that. They have to buy what they can when they need it. Being poor is expensive. If I have to pay taxes, you do too. A wealthy person's worst case scenario is a poor person's best case scenario. I have distant family who are multimillionaires, and they have anxiety attacks thinking about flying coach or sending their kids to public school. It's unreal. They can turn off your electricity if you don't pay. At least in some areas it's illegal for them to cut off the electricity during certain parts of the year, or if you have someone under a certain age living with you. Desperation. Getting to a point that you will do anything to be able to feed yourself or your child, even if it means selling your possessions or your body. That is, could give 0 FKS about y'all's expensive things. We barely can pay for food here. We have choice, but we don't get the same options. This is a good one. Your money saving tips are useless. Love it when you find money saving tips and they'll be like, make your own coffee at home, buy store brand food, cut down on expenses, and it's like, okay, I already don't drink coffee. Buy store brand, except in the cases where store brand is actually more expensive than name brand. Rare but happens. And the expenses in my life that aren't strictly entirely necessary are the only things that keep me from just jumping off a bridge. The price of bread and milk and the essential less in life. This may be a little of a tangent, but here goes. If you're rich, you have the time to take acting classes, practice music, or paint sculpt. It gives you the time to hone your artistic skills and gives you the freedom to audition, show your pieces, etc. You also most likely have better connections that are an road to achieving some notoriety and success. Try being a talented artist in any aforementioned field and also work full time, because you have to survive and pay the bills. Now, I know it does happen with a select few who go on and make it, but it's far and few between. I met many talented musicians over the years who were good enough to be on radio and probably would have been if they had the same connections artists who came from wealth did. I'm also hinting that nepotism definitely reigns in the entertainment industry. The biggest thing I think most people don't understand is the pure stress of being poor. Spending most of your waking hours trying to work out how you'll pay your bills and manage to eat. Sometimes you either have to go hungry for a day or two, as in not eating at all, just so your heat/internet doesn't get cut off. Poor people have just as much of a right to vote in their interest as you do. If you want to vote for lower taxes for landlords, that's fine. But you can't expect poor people to agree with you. Can't pull yourself up by the bootstrings if you don't have boots. That poor people kill themselves over debts that might seem trivial or insignificant to them. We aren't all getting Starbucks every single morning. Stop trying to sell us on that business making model for saving up. Not what I would consider poor anymore, but as a past rural poor, the stress of being one car breakdown away from homelessness takes years off of your life. That's where I'm at right now. We'd work better jobs if we could, but factors other than hard work are at play. Internet saved many people, while inequality still exists. Information are more available. If it weren't for internet, I wouldn't have as much knowledge as I have. We aren't going to care what they taste like. Sometimes reasons aren't excuses, they're actual reasons. Generational poverty versus generational wealth. Also see generational trauma. Not using it as an excuse. I'm just saying it's a real thing. I want them to realize they could save my life in a heartbeat, and it wouldn't affect their bottom line at the end of the day. The can of worms is actually a bottle of worms with a twisty cap. That just because some people can and do work their way out of poverty with smart choices doesn't mean everyone can. All the personal discipline in the world can be derailed by an unexpected pregnancy, a sudden medical problem, a large and unexpected bill, or any number of other real-life surprises. With a supportive network of friends and family, some people can weather some surprises like that. But if you're isolated, or if your social network is mostly people in even harder circumstances, it can be incredibly hard to overcome even small setbacks. And if you're not lucky, problems like that can compound. A temporary illness might cause you to miss work, get fired, lose your apartment and wind up living in a car. I'm hate it anytime someone tells the I got out of poverty story, as if it somehow invalidates all the lives of anyone who wasn't so lucky. The dilemma to pay for your bills, or paying for your child's school picture. That not everyone can just get a better job. If there were somehow enough better jobs to go around, which there are not, everyone moving towards those would drive the wages of those jobs through the floor /A&D/*. No one would be left to do the poopty jobs you don't want to do. And being poor is basically a trap. Once you're there, it's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to get out of. You actually watched the whole video. I'd give you a high five if I was a human. Make sure to click the like button and subscribe for more great content. See you next time.